Shocking truth. Black farmer fights back against gang. You won't believe her secret past. The sun set low over Maple Creek, casting long shadows that danced ominously along the cracked dirt roads. Folks whispered in hushed tones, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. Tension hung in the air, thick as molasses, after that gruesome night when the quiet farming community erupted in chaos. What happened was unfathomable. A determined black farmer, armed with nothing but an iron will and a deceptive past, stood toe-to-toe with a gang notorious for terrorizing the town. Her name? Edna Blackwell. But who was she really? Underneath the well-worn overalls was a woman with a history wrapped in secrets darker than the stormy night sky. Rumors slithered through town like snakes. Some said she used to be a high-powered attorney, thriving in a world of suits and courtroom scandals. Others claimed she had a family connection to some shadowy figures, whispering about ties that could shake the very foundations of the gang itself. What was clear was that Edna had turned her back on the life she once led to protect her farm, her family. The question was, what else was she hiding? That night, the air crackled with electricity as she faced down the gang members, their jeers echoing off the wooden barns. Each word was a knife, cutting through the tension. "You think you own this place?" their leader spat, trying to intimidate her. But Edna's eyes gleamed with defiance, fierce and unwavering, sending chills down spines. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every neighbor who had cowered in fear for too long. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the gang closed in, every heartbeat echoed like a drum in Edna's ear. She couldn't afford to back down. Just when it seemed that tensions would boil over, a gunshot rang out, shattering the silence and sending everyone into a frenzy. Panic erupted, but through the chaos, Edna stood firm. What was her next move? Was there a hidden weapon behind the farmer facade? The answers loomed large as shadows lengthened and the darkness threatened to swallow them whole. What secrets would be revealed when the dust settled? The gunshot ricocheted through the night, a sudden blast that froze Edna in time. The gang members staggered, confusion flickering across their smug faces. In that fleeting moment, Edna's mind raced. Was it a warning shot? A cry for help? And then, like a scene pulled straight from a tarred canvas, a second shot pierced the air, echoing ominously through the fields. Edna's heart pounded like a wild stallion. She felt the weight of eyes on her neighbors peeking from behind shuttered windows, holding their breath, hoping and praying for the courage to act. "Get down!" one of the gang members shouted, scrambling for cover behind a nearby truck. Fear cracked his previously bravado-laden voice, only fueling Edna's resolve. She stood her ground as her mind echoed her own unspoken mantra, "I am not afraid." "Are you hiding behind the truck like a coward?" Edna shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos with razor-sharp clarity. The words ricocheted in the night. The remaining gang members glanced at each other, uncertain. Fear had transformed into panic. But in that moment, she could almost feel the confidence surging through her, the metaphorical night against the dragons of despair lurking deep within Maple Creek. This was her land. This was her fight. And whatever secrets lay buried beneath her sun-kissed fields were now rising like smoke from a hidden fire. Suddenly, she spotted movement at the edge of the field. A figure, cloaked in shadows, slipped quietly through the rows of corn. Who could it be? A friend? An enemy? The figure emerged into view, illuminating a moment of pure terror. It was her estranged brother, Daniel. "Edna!" he called, his voice raw with urgency. "You have to listen. They're not just some local thugs. They're connected to something much bigger." The words hung suspended in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Edna's breath caught in her throat. Her brother had dived into the depths of her forgotten past, dredging up memories she thought were safely buried. Memories of dark alleys, whispered threats, and power plays that could shake an entire city. Before she could respond, the gunshots pierced the air again. The look in Daniel's eyes was wild, frantic. She could see the truth unraveling there, like a thread slowly coming undone. "They know about you, Edna. They know you're not who you claim to be." Fear gripped her chest, but she steadied herself. Desperation drove her forward. "What do you mean?" she yelled, battling the roaring chaos around them. But there was no time for answers. The gang dug deeper into the fray, emerging like vultures ready to feast. With one final glance, Daniel darted away, a glimmer of urgency propelling him into the shadows. And in that split second, Edna realized she had a choice: to confront the past she had tried to bury, or to stand strong, armed with nothing but her will and a passionate heart. Her gut twisted, and she quelled the wave of uncertainty rising within. She looked into the horizon where the stars, undeterred by darkness, glimmered defiantly. "What do you really want from this place?" she cried, her voice rising above the chaos, weaving through fear and dread like an arrow aimed at the heart of the night. "What will you sacrifice to protect the land you love?" The echoes of her own question resonated deeply, leaving a haunting silence that settled among the hostility. As darkness stretched around her, Edna knew that the fight had just begun, and somewhere in that growing storm lurked the answers she never wanted to face. Would she embrace her forgotten past, or risk everything to protect the future? The chaos intensified as the blasts of gunfire rang out, slicing through the tension-stricken air. Edna felt her heartbeat thunder in her ears, urging her to move. The remaining gang members were regrouping, their eyes darting nervously, as if sensing they were losing power. They weren't just any thugs. They were wolves circling prey, desperate and dangerous. She took a tentative step forward, adrenaline coursing through her like fire. "What do you want?" she shouted again, but no one responded. Instead, the silence was shattered by a shout from the far side of the field, where a glimmer of light flickered. A flashlight beam swept across the ground, illuminating the chaos and igniting panic in the gang. "Spread out," one of them yelled, and Edna seized the opportunity. She sprinted into the cover of the corn rows, her thoughts racing. Daniel had mentioned something broader, darker, and underworld befalling Maple Creek. Pushing through the stalks, she gritted her teeth against the rising sense of dread. Amidst her flight, images flooded her mind. Lost summers dotted with laughter, the comforting warmth of her parents, the day everything shattered. Memories she had buried deep began to resurface, unearthing the truth she had hidden for far too long. But clarity now burned bright. She was no longer that timid girl. She had become a force to be reckoned with. As the flashlight flickered closer, Edna paused, heart pounding. The sound of heavy footsteps erupted from behind her, a gang member chasing her down, determined to reclaim control. She ducked low, suppressing the urge to scream when she heard him call out, "We don't have to do this. Just give us the land. You don't know who you're messing with." Land? How many lives had been torn apart over land? Feelings of rage bubbled up within her. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," Edna hissed to herself, her fingers curling into fists. In a heartbeat, she whipped around. She wasn't just fighting against a gang. She was battling a legacy of oppression, the ghosts of betrayal standing behind her like sentinels. She would not allow history to repeat itself. Quickly scanning her surroundings, Edna saw her chance: a rusty old tractor partially hidden beneath a tarp. It loomed like an ancient guardian, forgotten but still powerful. If she could reach it, she could turn the tides. Sprinting towards it, she heard shouts from the other side. "Get her! Don't let her!" But their voices were drowned out by the roar of her thoughts. Each step felt electric as she lunged for the tractor's steering wheel, wrestling off the tarp with trembling hands. The engine coughed to life in a violent sputter, and Edna's heart soared. Somewhere behind her, the gang members were scrambling, their voices a disarray of disbelief and outrage. "Edna!" Daniel's voice sliced through her focus with razor-edged urgency. "What are you doing?" "I'm not running anymore," she shouted back, a fierce determination hardening her resolve. "I'm taking our land back." Before she could lose her nerve, she slammed the tractor into gear, its tires grinding against the gravel. She barreled forward, straight toward the gang, heart racing and palms sweating. The night erupted in chaos as terrified gang members dove out of the way. The tractor was like a beast unleashed, and she was its master, roaring against the night with newfound strength. She was no longer just a victim. She was a warrior born from the ashes of her past. But with the surge of adrenaline came the crushing realization of what lay ahead. The gang's influence was deeper than she had thought. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, warning her of the storm to come. With the darkness thickening around her, she kneed the tractor into high gear, vowing to uncover that hidden truth. "Not now," she whispered. "Not if I can help it." Now, all that remained was finding out just how high the stakes had become. A whisper of danger loomed in the air, and she was determined to face whatever awaited her. What secrets had Daniel uncovered that could change everything? Did the truth run deeper than blood? The roar of the tractor drowned out the chaos behind her. Edna gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles white, as the metal beast barreled over the uneven terrain. The wild, bright lights of the gang members flashed and danced in her rearview mirror, but she couldn't focus on them. Not now. Not when memories flared up like matchsticks threatening to ignite the darkness closing in around her. As she surged forward, she caught a glimpse through the cornstalks, glimpses of her town, of her childhood memories encased in warmth, now stained with fear. Images of the playground, of her father's laughter, of the summer festival parades filled her thoughts, intertwining with the present danger. They were ghosts refusing to let her go, impossible to silence. In the distance, the gang members regrouped, their ranks solidifying as they scrambled for weapons. "Flank her! Get her down!" Voices shouted, drawing nearer. Edna almost faltered, fear slicing through her bravado. But then she remembered Daniel's fierce resolve, the way he stood up to the shadows looming over their lives. "I'm not just saving myself," she muttered through clenched teeth. "I'm saving all of us." With a burst of determination, she pressed on the accelerator, sending the tractor into a frenzy of speed. The engine growled like a raging animal, propelling her forward, a symbol of resistance, of hope igniting in a world consumed by darkness. But she was painfully aware that hope alone wouldn't be enough this time. Suddenly, a blast rang out, not from a gun, but from the crack of wood splintering behind her. A cornstalk exploded, spraying dried husks into the air as bullets began to fly in earnest. Edna's heart raced, each shot echoing like a maniacal drumbeat. "They're not playing around," she gasped, a cold sweat forming across her brow. Panic cooled in her belly as fear danced on her nerves. How had things escalated so quickly? She could almost hear her father's voice warning her about the dangers hidden beneath a facade. "You can't always see the snakes until they strike," he would say. But she had to keep on moving. There was no going back. In a moment of inspiration, Edna ducked lower, steering the tractor as it jolted over furrows, avoiding the line of fire aimed at her. She whipped around to focus on her escape route, scanning the dim edges of the field. The distant lights of the farmhouse shone faintly on the horizon, a beacon begging for her to reach it. The weight of her decisions hit her like a ton of bricks. The stakes were high, and she wasn't just fighting for her land. She was fighting for the truth, hanging like a cloudy shadow over Maple Creek's history. What had Daniel stumbled upon that made this gang so desperate to shove their boot on her neck? The thought pushed her forward, fueled her rage. She wasn't just a farmer. She was the keeper of her family's legacy, and she would not let it slip through her fingers. She leaned on the horn, dissonant and jarring, as she charged toward the farmhouse, the sound a rallying cry that echoed through the night. But just as she cleared the last stretch of corn, a gunshot rang out, striking the tractor's side. Metal screeched as the tractor jolted under her control. Pain shot through her side, but she didn't scream. Instead, a sense of fury ignited inside her. She would keep fighting. With the farmhouse barely 100 yards away, Edna took a deep breath and focused. Was that Daniel's figure at the door? Or was it just her imagination playing tricks? Don't stop. You have to reach it. She barked to herself, pushing adrenaline to its limits. But what new horrors awaited her at the farmhouse? The ground beneath her shifted, shadows shifted in her peripheral vision, and she knew something terrible was coming. Who was really in control here? In the chaotic depths of a night thick with tension, Edna was about to find out before it was too late. Edna's heart thundered in her chest as she pressed on, the lights of the farmhouse flickering like a mirage just out of reach. The tractor shook violently beneath her, rattling every bone in her body. Another shot rang out, too close for comfort, and she felt the tension tighten around her like a noose. Just a little further, she whispered, determination coursing through her veins. As she barreled toward safety, the farmhouse loomed larger, but the shadows around it shifted and danced in the unnatural glow of the gang's flashlights. Figures darted from the corners of her vision, hunched and predatory. They weren't just hunters, they were hunting her. Suddenly, a heavy thud jolted the tractor to the side. Edna gasped, her breath catching as she willed the machine back on course. A bullet had torn through one of the tires, sending her careening dangerously to the left. She fought for control, twisting the wheel with everything she had, but the screams of danger grew louder, drowning out her thoughts. Ahead, she spotted Daniel, silhouetted against the bright doorway of the farmhouse. "Edna!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. But something was wrong. He didn't look like a guardian angel. There was a fear in his eyes that sent a chill down her spine. As she closed the distance, she saw him gesturing frantically. "Get down!" he yelled, bending low as something large and dark emerged from behind him. Her breath caught in her throat as she recognized the shape an empty corn crate knocked over, revealing a cluster of men armed with bats and crowbars, closing in fast. "Daniel!" Edna screamed, panic sparking the edges of her vision. The gnawing worry twisted inside her. Why didn't he just leave? But there was no time for questions. Edna gritted her teeth and pushed the throttle even more, defining a path straight through the chaos. Yet, as she approached, she saw the cold glimmer of steel in the hands of the men closing in. They were prepared for a fight. Her heart sank as sudden doubt washed over her. Would they grab Daniel? Would he sacrifice himself for her? With her hands trembling on the wheel, the tractor surged ahead, but the impending standoff loomed over them like a storm. This wasn't just about survival. It was about truth, about revealing whatever darkness had woven itself into their lives. As the roar of the tractor drowned out the cries behind, Edna felt the clarity sharpen within her. If there was one thing she learned from the losses in her life, it was that family was worth fighting for. "Get inside," she shouted at Daniel, veering slightly as bullets whizzed past her like angry bees. He bolted for the door, shouting back instructions. But just as he reached safety, one of the gang members lunged, a blurred figure swiping at Daniel's heels. In that dreadful moment, Edna had only an instant to act. Gripping the wheel tighter, she made a split-second decision. With a shuddering breath, she aimed the tractor straight for the group, ready to bulldoze her way through, to protect the only family she had left. The gang members realized too late, shock mingling with fear as she barreled toward them, her heart pounding a war drum of resolve against the terror rising within her. "Now!" she yelled, adrenaline surging as the gap narrowed, the collision imminent, but then came the deafening crunch of metal against flesh, followed by a grotesque silence as everything hung in the balance. Voices screamed and chaos erupted, but Edna barely heard them. The tractor jolted hard, and blackness clawed at the edges of her vision. What had she done? In that moment, an image broke through the darkness, a family gathering in the backyard, laughter ringing like wind chimes. Memories of carefree days danced in her mind, but they were soon submerged under an overwhelming wave of fear. Then, like a curtain being pulled open, something in Daniel's gaze shifted, revealing a new reality, a revelation she never expected. What hidden truths were rising to the surface? What would she discover about Daniel and herself as the smoke began to clear? She could only hope the truth would set them free, before it consumed them both. Edna's vision flickered back to life, but the world around her remained a chaotic blur of sound and motion. The lurch of the tractor jolted her fully awake, and she gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles. Pain radiated through her body, a sharp reminder of her desperation. Glancing to her left, she caught sight of a figure crumpled on the ground, its stillness sending a chill down her spine. "Daniel!" she cried, her voice cracking as she searched for him amidst the confusion that rapidly unraveled. Flashes of fear danced in her mind as she fought panic, every gunshot echoing like a thunderclap in her skull. "Here!" His voice emerged through the haze, shaky and frantic. She turned to see him at the farmhouse doorway, blood smudging his shirt, his face pale. The sight of him hinged her heart in a vice, a mix of relief and horror gripping her instincts. "Get out! They're coming!" Shifting gears, Edna slammed the pedal, the tractor roaring to life despite the odds against her. She couldn't stay frozen in fear, not when she could still fight. A group of men scrambled around her, shouting in fury and confusion as they struggled to comprehend the assault. But beneath their bravado lay undeniable uncertainty, and she seized that edge. "Get up!" Edna yelled at the nearest gang member, the anger rising like bile in her throat. "You think this is a game?" The looming shadows shrank back, exchanging glances that screamed hesitation. They hadn't expected her to fight. They never had. In the midst of this newfound courage, her mind flickered back to childhood tales from her grandmother, the stories of bravery, of standing up against hopeless odds. Those words surged through her veins now, igniting the fire burning in her core. It was about family. It was about survival. "Daniel!" she shouted, her lungs strained but determined. "Get to the barn. It's fortified." He hesitated, his eyes darting between her and the approaching pack of men with their makeshift weapons. She could see the conflict swirling in his expression, fear for her safety, for himself, but more than that, there was something deeper locked behind his gaze. Shadows danced like phantoms around them, and she had to break through the haze. "Now!" Edna screamed again, grabbing a heavy metal pipe protruding from under the tractor seat. She swung it toward the nearest gang member, feeling the weight of her childhood resolve fuel her push. She wasn't going to let them take him. Daniel finally moved, sprinting away from the chaos toward the barn, but the moment held a heaviness she couldn't shake. What was happening to them? They had been so close to normalcy, perhaps even happiness, before all hell had broken loose. Edna swung the pipe again, catching another thug in the side, and the man fell with a groan. Adrenaline surged through her, fueling her on, but as she fought, she realized with dread that numbers didn't favor her. For every one she struck down, two more emerged from the edge of the darkness. Suddenly, she heard a voice behind her that froze the blood in her veins, a voice she had never expected to hear. "Edna, stop!" She turned, and there he was, the leader of the gang, a man she thought had vanished. The moonlight caught his face, and she saw the twisted mockery in his smile. "Did you really think you could just bulldoze your way out of this?" Before she could respond, an explosion of light lit up the yard, illuminating faces of the gang and the growing bloodstain on the ground. The men recoiled at the sudden brightness, and Edna felt a spark of hope, a chance to escape, but at what cost? "Who's out there?" the leader roared, his previously grinning mask cracked by panic. As the tension reached a breaking point, the shadows began shifting unexpectedly. Edna couldn't help but wonder, was this the help they desperately needed, or another trap lying in wait? Her heart raced, and for the first time, a sliver of dread crept up her spine. What was going to happen next, and how deep did the darkness run? Only one thing was certain: the fight was far from over. The beam pierced through the darkness, wavering like a ghostly finger, and the chaos around Edna seeped into silence, if only for a moment. The gang members crouched low, their faces twisted in surprise. She glanced over her shoulder, desperately searching for the source of the light that had momentarily stolen their attention. Her heart pounded like a wild drum, each beat echoing her fear and hope. Across the yard, a figure stepped into view, a silhouette framed by the stark light. The air shifted, tension coiled, ready to snap. Edna strained to make out the features, the air tinged with the scent of gunpowder and sweat. "Who is it?" she whispered breathlessly, caught between dread and relief. Was it rescue? Or the beast returning to reclaim its prey? "Edna!" The voice rang out, familiar, urgent. It was her brother, Caleb, swinging a flashlight in one hand and brandishing a rifle in the other. He'd come just in time, a beacon against the encroaching shadows. "Caleb!" she cried, a wave of emotion crashing over her. But the moment was fleeting. The leader of the gang narrowed his eyes, fury igniting within him. She could almost see the gears turning. He wouldn't yield without a fight. A family reunion? His mocking tone slithered through the air, as he motioned for the others to advance. How quaint. But I suggest you step aside if you don't want to make things worse for yourself. The men remained hesitant, imposing yet on edge. They were wild animals cornered, the unexpected light exposing their hidden fears. As Caleb stood his ground, the rifle glinting in the moonlight, Edna recognized the stark bond they shared. Their fight was not just individual. It was collective, deeply rooted in their blood and spirit. Something primal awoke within Edna. Desperation shifted to determination. "Stay behind me, Caleb," she shouted, rushing toward her brother, pipe still clenched tightly in her grip. "Edna, no!" he barked. "Get to safety." "Safety? That's a myth," she retorted fiercely, her eyes locked onto the gang members, who now seemed unsure. "We're outnumbered, but I refuse to let them have the last word. This is our land." The gang leader snickered, the bravado wavering in his posture. "Your land? You think you can hold it against us? You've got spirit, I'll give you that. But it's misplaced." In one swift motion, he drew a gun and pointed it at them, the glint of metal like a snake's tooth. The world narrowed into a small tunnel of clarity, where choices stood stark, wrapped in the weight of consequence. Edna could feel the urgency dampen her breath. "Keep moving," Caleb shouted, shoving the flashlight toward the barn door. Edna hesitated, a flicker of dread poisoning her resolve. "No! We fight, Caleb. We can't back down." In that moment, she saw it, a shard of recognition in the gang leader's eyes. He wasn't just an enemy. He was a ghost from the past, someone she thought she'd buried. "You again?" His sneer was grotesque with pleasure. "Thought you were out of the game, didn't you?" Her chest tightened. Memories surged, unbidden lessons learned, left unspoken fears, a past she had wished to escape. "Leave us alone," she managed to choke out, heart racing. "Ah, But you've made it so interesting, Edna. Let us see how this plays out. He motioned to the others, slowly tightening the noose. As confusion swept over the gang, Edna seized the moment, adrenaline ripping through her. "Now, Caleb!" she yelled, as they lunged forward, ready to reclaim their destiny. Caleb swung his rifle in sync, and the entire scene warped into a fray of movement. Moments unfolded like a film. Gunfire erupted, pierces of chaos scattered the ground, and Edna felt a surge of energy born from their unity. But just as victory seemed in sight, dark figures emerged from the tree line, reinforcements creeping into view. It was an ambush. They had a backup plan she never saw coming. "Edna!" Caleb shouted, his voice laced with panic, as the ground trembled beneath them. What would it take to survive this nightmare? As the reality of their predicament sunk in, dread darkened their spirits. Was this the end of their fight, or a new beginning? In the swell of chaos, the echo of their past hung thick in the air, and Edna wondered, could they find strength in the shadow of their former lives? With hearts racing and breaths quickening, they braced for the storm ahead. The battle was just beginning. The ground shook under the force of the chaos, every noise amplified. Gunshots rang out, ricocheting in the thick air, the impacts jolting through Edna's bones. She turned to Caleb, whose expression was a mix of fear and fierce determination. She saw him grip the rifle tighter, knuckles turning white, ready to face the oncoming tide of darkness. "Stay low," he yelled, but it was drowned out in the noise of the skirmish. Edna crouched, clutching her pipe against her body like a lifeline. With every inch they moved, adrenaline coursed through her veins, a wild mix of survival instincts and the need to protect her brother. She caught sight of the gang members pointing guns in their direction, their faces twisted in malevolent glee. They were animals unleashed, waiting for the hint of vulnerability. "Caleb!" she shouted, desperation rising in her throat as she spotted a flash of silver, a blade gleaming under the light. "Watch out!" But it was too late. One of the gang members lunged. Edna's heart dropped as she witnessed the movement. Time stretched, a split-second moment blooming into a lifetime. Caleb turned just in time, deflecting the strike with the rifle, but the force sent him stumbling backward, panic flooding his eyes. "No!" Edna screamed, rushing forward, the sounds around her fading as she dove to her brother's side, ready to defend him at any cost. "Get back!" he roared, firing a shot that cracked through the night, but their enemies were closing in. Edna felt the heat rise. Their very survival depended on their unity, on the strength of their bloodline. A blast echoed. A bullet whizzed past her ear, grazing the skin on her cheek. She felt a stinging pain, but it only fueled her fire. She looked up, daring to meet the gang leader's mocking gaze once more. "You think you can scare us?" she shouted, fire igniting her words. "We aren't afraid of you." His laughter was cruel and sharp. "Ah, Edna, that spirit has a way of burning out." He signaled to another member, sending them creeping closer under the cover of chaos. Heart racing, Edna scanned the surrounding area, seeking any advantage. The barn loomed nearby, shadows casting long fingers over the ground. She knew there were tools inside that could turn the tide. "Caleb, follow me," she yelled, taking a chance in the frenzy. "Are you crazy?" he shouted back, but she didn't wait for his answer. Edna darted toward the barn, adrenaline propelling her forward as she ducked behind a stack of hay bales. She could hear the clicks of their enemy's guns, the tension snapping like a wire ready to break. Caleb followed, urgency marking his face as he squeezed into the narrow space beside her. "What's the plan?" he whispered, glancing at the chaos outside. "Grab the pitchfork and any tools you can find," Edna instructed, her mind racing through memories of their childhood, the days spent fending off pests, preparing to protect their crops. "We'll turn their own weapons against them." The barn door creaked dangerously as they worked quickly, fingers trembling, adrenaline making it hard to focus. Each metallic clang echoed with hope, the hope of survival instead of surrender. Outside, the gang shouted, their voices blending into a jarring noise that filled the air with a sense of doom. Edna leaned closer, peering through the gaps, gathering strength from the sight of the enemy swarming around. "They're regrouping," she whispered urgently. "We have to act fast." Then, the haunting sound of a familiar voice broke through the din, an echo from the past that sent a chill down her spine. "Edna," the leader called, a sinister drawl that wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket. "You remember me, don't you? This isn't over." Her stomach twisted as dread mixed with anger. "I'll never let you take this from us," she shouted back, squaring her shoulders. But uncertainty crept in. Even as she prepared for the fight, the tension hovering over the barn felt electric, whispering secrets that gnawed at her core. What were they up against? And what did this gang leader truly know about her? Every heartbeat echoed with questions. As they braced for the chaos outside, the weight of truth heavy in the air. In this moment, Edna realized the past was coming back for them, and its grip was tighter than ever. Would they break free from its clutches, or was this the beginning of an even darker fight? The darkness thickened, pressing in like a heavy fog as Edna and Caleb crouched in the barn. Heartbeats drummed loudly in her ears, drowning out the chaos outside. She could feel the weight of fear dancing in her throat, but she swallowed it down, determination igniting a fire deep in her chest. "Caleb, hurry," she whispered urgently, scanning the cluttered barn for anything that could help them survive this madness. "Got it," he said, hauling a pitchfork from behind a box, its prongs glinting eerily in the dim light. "What else?" "Anything sharp, a hammer, a saw, just grab it all," she urged. They had to be ready for anything. Adrenaline surged as they moved with frantic purpose, eyes darting to the door, which creaked ominously under the weight of impending confrontation. Time felt elastic, stretching and snapping back, each second pregnant with looming uncertainty. Suddenly, the barn door rattled, a rush of sending it crashing open. A gang member stood silhouetted against the chaos outside, an evil grin spreading across his face as he stepped inside. "Look what we have here," he taunted, glancing around the barn as if he were surveying a buffet. "A couple of little mice hiding from the cat." Edna clenched her fists around the pipe, ready to swing. Caleb stood tense beside her, a protective stance that echoed their childhood, he always ready to shield her from danger. "Get out," Edna shouted, her fierce voice surprising even herself. "You don't know who you're messing with." The gang member laughed, a cruel, dismissive sound. "Oh, we know more than you think. Isn't that right, boys?" His laughter attracted a few other members, who drifted into view just outside the barn door, leaning against the frame as if this were a theater performance. "Edna, we can't take them all," Caleb began, but she cut him off, eyes locked on their attackers. "We don't have a choice," she hissed, gripping the pitchfork. "We fight. We don't run." Caleb flashed her a pained look but nodded slowly, surrendering to her resolve. They would have to stand firm. Running would only lead them back into shadows worse than this. As the nearest gang member took a step forward, reaching for her, Edna acted. She lunged, swinging the pipe with all her might. The metal struck true, catching him across the temple with a sickening thud. He crumpled in surprise, and for a split second, silence fell like a shroud. "Get them!" another gang member yelled, and chaos erupted once more. Caleb fired a shot, his heart racing and desperation evident. The bullet struck one of the shadows clustered outside, sending a gang member stumbling back, but it wasn't enough to deter the advancing tide. "Back to back," Edna shouted, instinct kicking in as they formed a protective barrier against their enemies. She could feel Caleb's back pressing against hers, their unity a powerful shield. But just as they steadied themselves for the next wave, the eerie laughter of the gang leader echoed through the barn, slicing into the noise. "Such spirit," he called, his voice dripping with mockery. "But spirit can only take you so far." Caleb tightened his grip on the rifle. "What is he talking about?" "I don't know." Edna's voice trembled slightly. "But we have to focus." In that moment of crisis, Edna's mind raced back to the words of their mother, a warning, a plea. It shouldn't have mattered, but the fear of the past clung to her like a shadow. Suddenly, the gang leader stepped into view, eyes aflame with some dark promise. "You think this is just about survival? This is personal." Edna felt a chill creep along her spine. "What do you mean?" she demanded, but he only smiled wider, enjoying the torment written across her face. "Your secret has a way of catching up, Edna. And I'm here to collect." The statement hung thick in the air, a sinister thread weaving through the chaos. What did he know? What kind of past was clawing its way back into her life? Just then, gunfire erupted once more. Her mind flickered with panic. As she turned to Caleb, a realization ripped through her. There was far more at stake than she imagined. They were not just fighting for their lives. They were battling against truths buried deep, truths that could unravel everything they thought they knew. The next moment could change everything, and the past loomed like a predator watching them both. And just as she prepared for whatever was coming, a shadow flickered at the corner of her eye, a figure she never expected to see. Would this newcomer be their savior, or the final nail in their coffin? Edna's heart raced as the looming shadows swirled around her. There was no escaping the dark past that coiled behind her like a menacing serpent. Outside, the relentless chaos of the gang pressed in like a vice, each heartbeat echoing with her unspoken fears. Then, from the corner of her eye, a silhouette emerged. It was familiar, almost painfully so. Could it be Daniel? She whispered, her voice trembling as hope flickered. But before she could truly believe it, he stepped into the light, his presence cutting through the fear, tangible and alive. "Edna! Caleb!" he shouted, urgency leaping in his words that chased away lingering dread. "I found help." The gang members exchanged uneasy glances. They hadn't counted on reinforcements. As Caleb shifted slightly, aiming the rifle, he called out, "Who else is with you?" "Just a few of us," Daniel yelled back. "But we need to act now." In a flash of courage, Edna tore open the barn doors wider, the movement bold and resolute. "Whatever you've got, bring it on," she yelled loudly, her voice steady as her heart thundered in her chest. The gang leader recoiled slightly, the thrill of power doused by an icy wave of fear. "You think you have a chance?" he sneered, but even through his bravado, Edna could see the cracks in his confidence. "More than you'll ever know." Edna shot back, her anger coursing through her veins. This was a confrontation not just for survival, but for reclaiming their futures. In that blink, their allies rushed in a small unfurling of hope that pushed back the oppressive darkness. Flashlights glimmered like fireflies. The sounds of determination echoed through the yard as they took up arms. A sense of unity forged its way across Edna's heart. She glanced at Caleb, seeing the fire mirrored in his eyes. They weren't just siblings now. They were a force, a family standing against a storm. The gang members faltered, apprehension creeping into their ranks. "Get them!" the leader barked, but the fight had already shifted. Edna felt the tide turning. "Charge!" Daniel yelled, leading the way. Edna surged forward, lungs filled with newfound resolve. Together with Caleb and Daniel, they darted toward their enemies, pitchforks and makeshift shields raised. The air around them buzzed with anticipation, each gust danced with possibility. Edna focused on the leader, her breath steady as she approached, ready to confront the demons of her past. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded, locking her gaze on him. I stand for myself and everyone in this town you think you can intimidate. Laughter poured from him, tainted with malice. You know nothing of intimidation. You're a shadow of your former self, Edna. Maybe, she snapped back, but shadows can still bite back. Before he could respond, she struck. The metal of the pitchfork connected solidly. An explosion of satisfaction surged through her. Chaos erupted around them, as more allies joined the fray, a chorus of rekindled strength. It was all or nothing now. With a mix of adrenaline and the weight of their legacy on her shoulders, Edna rallied her allies, shouting commands. Teamwork surged through the air, vibrant and alive. Caleb fought beside her, and Daniel stood firm, capable and fierce, flanking her every move. Together, they pressed the attack, pushing back against the surging wave of violence. Edna summoned everything within her, every challenge faced, every heartache endured to fuel her resolve. Keep going, she urged, feeling the strength of her family ignite the spirit of the town. Memories of the past intertwined, fueling each strike against the gang's forces. As the battle raged, one by one, the gang members began to falter. The tide shifted drastically, their grip loosened, and with one final push, Edna felt the weight of victory rise in the air. The leader, now realizing defeat was upon him, turned to flee, eyes wild with panic. Get back here! Edna shouted, charging after him, but before she could catch him, Daniel's voice rang out, "You don't escape this time." "Stop!" Edna gasped, suddenly taking in the attachment of their fates. This wasn't he. Just about crushing the enemy. This was a reckoning. As if sensing the same, Caleb interjected, "Let him go, Edna. Remember who we are. We don't sink to his level." Edna halted, breathless yet grounded. The noise of chaos faded into an eerie ambience, and for a moment, she found peace amidst the storm. "You're right," she whispered, realization washing over her. "We reclaim what is ours." With that, she turned her back on the retreating leader. The gang scattered, shadows dispersing under the light brought forth by community spirit of family bonds, resilient and true. It was over. Exhaling deeply, the weight settled on her. They had faced down darkness and claimed their lives back. They were farmers once more. They were family. "Edna!" Daniel called, rushing to her side, warmth radiating from his expression. "We did it! It's a new beginning, isn't it?" she observed, surveying the now quiet field. Tears blurred her vision as she embraced her brother, the warmth anchoring her. "Yeah, let us rebuild." As dawn crept over Maple Creek, bathing the horizon in golden light, Edna felt a weight lift within her. Though the events of the night would linger, she understood now. She was not just a survivor of her past, but an architect of her future. And amidst her family's laughter and the rekindled spirit of their town, she knew she had found home. Now, if you're rushing to your screens with the same energy that fueled Edna's fight, you need to subscribe immediately. Don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that will take you deeper into this world. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, show your love, and flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about what just unfolded. Your voice matters here. This is the moment to show your support and share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to witness this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Let us build this community together.